grab a cup of coffee, and meet your next favorite author. Nothing's off limit on Hotseat.
Hi, readers. You're in for such a treat today. It's just going to be the two of us, and the reason why is because Lark is releasing her next book tomorrow. Lark, why don't you show us your cover and tell us what this is about?
Okay, it's called Lovers and Lies, and it's a contemporary romance. It's a small town story, but the small town is the expat community on an island in the Caribbean. So it's a small community, but it's also a community that is set apart from the rest of the island just culturally, because these are people who are transplants, and some of them stay for a long time, some of them stay for a short time, but throughout their stay there, they deal with a lot of the hardships, the challenges of living on a small island. The main characters are Daniel and Sky. Sky's lived there for 7 years. She has what she thinks is built a great life for herself, but she has recently gotten an opportunity to be a partner in the largest landscape design company on the island. And she's excited about that, but then Daniel arrives. And Daniel's been hired to take the company to the next level. He's a brilliant young landscape architect with no self-confidence problem at all. And they butt heads from the very beginning. But soon the other aspects of her life start unraveling. And she has some challenges that end up as a public humiliation, and then she's viciously attacked. And Daniel's the one who steps in and rescues her, and from then on, everything changes.
Love it. And by the way, as your critique partner, I've read this many, many times. And it is very, in my opinion, it's sultry. The whole setting and the wealth that is on an island like that with expats. I think one of the settings you have is they're at a charity ball, and just your description of the finery and the music and the ball gowns it's just fantastic. You lived in the Caribbean for some time too, in your 20s, right?
Yeah, I lived in St. Croix for almost a decade.
Wow.
And while I was there, I had a lot of different jobs and interacted with a lot of people. I had a dive business, and
cool.
I worked for a survey company for a while, which is a little bit of the inspiration for Caribbean Sun, because I worked for a great couple there, and I learned a lot about what it's like to be there long term working for them, because they raised their families there, and they were there for almost 30 years. So
Americans?
they were Americans,
Mhm.
and I was very close to them. They were like second parents. So they were sort of the inspiration for Hank and Ellen. But I had a lot of friends there over the years, and it was a very different place to live from living in the city of Houston. It was everybody knew everybody. Everybody knew everybody's history, their marriages, their love affairs,
Really?
their
So it really was
financial
small
issues.
town gossip.
It was. There was absolutely no privacy on the
Wow.
island at all, and so that gets old. But it also, forms friendships and loyalties that you don't necessarily see other places.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a couple of scenes where one of the characters, a secondary character, Wills, is doing a dive, and the all the characters in the main characters go on this boat and do a dive. So you were doing that for real. You were taking
I
people on.
was. I had a dive boat and a dive business and took people out. It was kind of fun, but I was young uh, because I was diving all the time. I was tiny. I don't think I've ever been that skinny. But I had to eat peanut butter and jelly just to keep the weight on. So when I would take out divers, a lot of times they were middle-aged men, and I would get comments like, "Well, I hope you can keep up with me." And they would suck down their whole tank, and I would still have three-quarters of a tank, and they'd be exhausted, and I was ready for another dive. So
Isn't that
it was
crazy?
a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, but being outside, being on the water, being under the water, being on the beach, it was a wonderful way of life, and it was great to do it while I was young because I think as you get older, you are not necessarily eager to get into a bathing suit.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody go dive right now.
Go
So
dive if you're under 30.
don't suck down the tank. What about now? You were showing me before we hit record. You were showing me the first version, which you had written many years ago, and it was very, very different. I mean, the
20
characters
years
just aren't
ago.
the same.
20
Yeah.
years ago.
So
Yeah.
show us the cover and the title, and why
uh,
did you change the plot so much?
it was called Price of Paradise, and it was a serial killer story. A lot of violence.
A lot of
um,
dark.
it was a very dark story. And when I started the new book, I really wasn't starting it as a revision of the first book at all. I had been talking to Jodie Thomas because I had enjoyed her Texas books so much, and what I liked about them were they had a very rich cast of characters, and there was a main romance plot, but the other characters really added to the feeling of the West and the small town. And I wanted to write something that would reflect the life that a normal, everyday person lives on the island, in the islands. People who are just doing their a regular job. For Daniel and Sky, they work for a landscape business. Some of the others are attorneys. They have an accounting firm. They doing all kinds of things that are just the same kind of work that you would do in the States, which people don't necessarily think about.
No,
And
at all.
and they're facing some of the same issues that you would face if you lived in the States. But added to that is being a in a cultural bubble, um, because it's very difficult to assimilate into a culture that is so different and not necessarily very welcoming.
Yeah, yeah,
And so I wanted a story where there was there was a whole community and not just um, a very heavy dark plot.
yeah, yeah. But now you still have, and you mentioned this in the intro that Sky is attacked at night. Um, did you find when you lived in St. Croix that it was more dangerous than America, or you're a woman, you don't go out at night?
Well, the, there's two parts to that. One is it's a very small community, so whenever someone is a victim of a crime.
Mm,
But I would say there was more than normal um, home invasions, um, attacks on the streets, robberies, and there were several murders while I was there. And
mm,
because it's a small community, you know these people,
mm-hmm.
and you are very aware of where you are and what you're doing because it is a small place, but you're a stranger. You're an outsider
Mm-hmm.
in that environment. Even though you're working there, you're living there, going to school, raising a family, there's still a cultural difference that
Right.
you have to you kind of have to adjust to.
And the poverty, I think, that you've got the 5-star resorts, and then you've got these little tin shelters along the roadside, which you don't
Exactly.
have in your book. But I remember from being on cruises and landing in some of these islands, it was shocking, shocking how poor they are.
And and the people who live there, um, a lot of them have never been off the island. It's extremely expensive to live there.
Mm.
Food is expensive,
It's important.
and most of it's imported. There aren't even places to buy inexpensive things. There's no Walmart. The one Kmart they had closed down.
Mm.
So you don't have all this retail where you can go to TJ Maxx and buy some clothes, or go to Sam's Club and buy food. Everything is imported, and so a lot of people try to order things online, but Amazon is not free delivery when you're in the islands.
I doubt it. This is where
So
all the
everything is
delivery charges
expensive.
go. Oh, wow.
And
Well,
people
now
who move there don't think about how
I would never
difficult
think
it is.
that. Yeah,
No.
I wouldn't. Now, going back to your book, in your other books, you wrote a series, the Duran series, which is a little more paranormal suspense. Um, in and they were all 2 points of view, hero, heroine, most of the time until the last two. Why did you bring in Sky's mom as a third point of view?
Because I
And
loved her.
don't give away any spoilers, but why choose her? Why not Charisse or any of the other Wills?
Well, Roz is quite the character. I think you'll agree on that. Um, and I needed for her and Sky to reconcile. I mean, it's a tough relationship, and I wanted to show that show more of who Roz was, because she's not exactly what she looks like on the surface.
Right.
She shows up because she's hiding from the tabloids, but that's only part of who she is. And by the time we get to the end, we learn a lot about why she did what she did, why she lived the life she lived, and 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 in the end, she does she does sort of redeem herself in
Yeah.
the
Oh,
reader's eyes.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I thought that it was very intriguing how you get Sky's point of view of her mom and her thoughts on how she was raised, and then you go into Roz's point of view, and it's a completely different um, thought process and reasoning, and you understand both of them, and it really enriches a story.
And the interesting part is, Sky had a very colorful childhood, which you kind of figure out very, very early. I think page 3.
Yeah.
Um, but when she's telling Daniel, because Daniel's background is so very, very different. He's seeing her life as being exciting,
Yeah.
where she's feeling like she had a rough childhood, and he just would have given anything to have her childhood. So it's an interesting
Dynamic.
it's an interesting dynamic between the two of them.
Yeah, yeah, it's so well done. And you have a small age difference. I think the earlier version had like an 8-year age difference, but you make him younger.
He's
And why do
younger.
you choose that?
um I thought it would make it harder for her to put up with him, with his attitude. um and also because I happen to like younger men, I guess. um
Viewers, she married one.
I married one. I think that it made that dynamic because he's very mature for his age because of his
Upbringing.
history,
Yeah,
and she is a little bit. She's not immature, but she's had a much easier time of life than
he
he
did.
has. So I just thought that age difference kind of worked for them.
Well, it's just one more conflict between them,
Hmm.
in my opinion. So your first series, I'll go back to that, was set mostly in Paris. It was a little bit of jet setting to Mexico and things like that. You are a purveyor of exotic settings in your stories. How come you choose that and not just Houston, Texas?
I love to travel, and I've traveled a lot. Um, and I find that I'm not that interested in writing about Houston, Texas, or small town USA. I think I've only written one book. No, I've written two books set in the U.S. One um, in Montana,
Oh yeah,
mostly
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Glacier National Park, which I'm
yeah.
going to finally in September, and the other was New Orleans. And
Oh
I
yeah,
think
I forgot about that one. Yeah,
I think New Orleans was because the whole magic and voodoo
voodoo.
really fit in
Yeah,
with the Duran world,
yeah.
and Glacier National Park because I wanted uh, I wanted a really tough environment
Mm.
for
Right.
that those two characters to have to navigate together.
Struggle.
It's
Yeah.
a forced proximity, but forced proximity in a really, really rough situation.
And you can check out Lark on her and all her books on her website, larkbrennan.com. Here is your ATA hot seat question, your happily ever hot seat question. Of all 6 books, uh, which hero is your favorite?
It has to be Mark Duran. Mark is a character, and he's a point of view character in pretty much all the books but one of the Duran Chronicles. And I just love him because he's very strong. He is smart. He will do a lot of bad things for really good reasons, and he doesn't let that make him too jaded. He still has a wonderful sense of honor, and in the end, he is willing to sacrifice himself for an innocent woman who was uh, put in a bad situation because of her situation, because she's related to the Durans. And
Mhm.
I just think he's great. I just think he's the most fun of all the characters I've written.
Thanks for being with us.
Well, thank
And
you for having me.
I wish you the best of luck on your release day, August 19th, Lovers and
Thank you.
Lives.
Lovers
Please,
and Lies.
please pick up a copy. Please like and share below, and come on back next week. Thanks.
All righty. Thanks, Sarah. Bye bye.